Hey everyone, Rob here from Phantom Trading, and welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Trading Psychology. Now, this is obviously a very, very important topic because trading psychology is a huge part of trading. I would say that trade psychology is just as important, if not more important, than developing your technical analysis skills and your trade execution skills. Why? Because us humans, we're largely driven by emotions. It's just a fact. So if you go into trading and maybe you have like the most perfect strategy, it claims to have a really high strike rate, really good R, all of that. If you come into it with really poor trade psychology skills that just don't match up to it, there's not a chance that you're going to be able to trade it effectively. And a lot of that boils down to understanding things like probability and how probability works, and actually being able to execute that within the market. So let's dive into it. I've actually kind of already written this out, but I'm gonna show you guys really quickly this sort of the four stages of competence, essentially. So this is not a thing that I invented, but it's obviously applicable to any type of skill, and especially trading psychology. It can be applied to that. So I kind of put this together in a way that puts it in the context of trading psychology, so we can kind of see maybe what stage you're at, whether you're a brand new trader or you have a couple years under your belt, or maybe you're even 5+ years into trading, 10 years. I think this video will be useful for you, right? And as another quick note, now this video is obviously it's meant to go with the article that I wrote for Phantom Trading. It is under the resources section if you want to check it out, and I'll also leave a link in the video description below so you can click on it and read it if you prefer to read it. But this video is just supposed to be a little bit of a different way of learning about it. So let's get started with it. So the 4 stages of competence in trading psychology. So essentially, let's start out with unconscious incompetence, which really you can call ignorance, right? This is the stage where maybe you've just been introduced to trading. Maybe a friend introduced it to you. Maybe you've even taken trades before, and maybe you've won or lost. But this is essentially where you're brand new to trading, and you honestly just don't know what you're doing. You don't have a trade plan. You don't have any sort of strategy that you're trading. And then in the context of trade psychology, I mean, you just have little to no experience with with trading, right? And probabilities. So you're effectively gambling. That's what unconscious incompetence is. Again, in the context of trade psychology. Moving on, how do we get to conscious incompetence? Well, this is kind of where a lot of traders take the first step into building a career as a professional trader. So, and I would even hesitate to call people who are in the first stage here traders, because they're really not, right? They're just somebody who's gambling with money. Anybody can open a brokerage account and trade a stock or buy a stock, right? And same with with an FX broker. Anybody can get MT4 and put a few lots on euro dollar long, just as an example, right? Now, conscious incompetence, on the other hand, this is where maybe you spend a little bit more time and you kind of realize, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, right? So typically that shift happens when either we hit a bunch of wins, take a winning streak, or we get a winning streak or a losing streak, or maybe we're just break even. We're winning and losing, and we can't find any consistency, right? Now, does that mean we're anywhere close to finding consistency? No. You're still pretty much at the start of your journey. This is probably like the quickest shift from one stage to the other, right? From unconscious to conscious incompetence. And again, for this particular stage, I would call this the awareness stage, right? Again, I didn't invent this, but that's what it's called, and it makes sense, again, in the context of this. So this is that stage where, again, maybe you hit a losing streak and you just decide, okay, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I thought I could make a lot of money with trading this or that. It could be crypto, stocks, forex. You could be playing blackjack at a casino, right? There are professional blackjack players. There's professional poker players, right? So either you're reacting in one of a few ways. Either you're angry, you're upset, you're sad, you're really feeling the losses. Maybe it doesn't affect you all that much, but maybe you're just aware of it, right? Or if you hit a winning streak like I did early on in my trading career, I quickly realized that, after I won really big on a very, very risky bet in the stock market on a penny stock, I realized, is this really something that's sustainable? Now, I'm not going to sit here and think, I've mastered the market and that I can replicate that, right? So to me, that was kind of my wake-up call from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, right? Where I realized, again, I don't really have a strategy. I just sort of bought, this stock, and then it happened to rise in price. I don't even know the reason for it. I didn't understand what order flow is or why markets move or any of that, right? So that to me was a wake-up call, and maybe you've gone through a similar experience, right? Or maybe you've lost a bit or lost a lot, right? Because you were kind of gambling in whatever market that you were playing in, right? But that's kind of the shift from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. Now, from a psychological perspective, same thing, right? So maybe you realize, okay, again, I don't know what I'm doing, and you're sort of feeling a certain way about it, right? Because you weren't really prepared for it. So that could kind of be viewed as that shift as well, right? And now, why is this step important? Obviously, it's important because if we stay unconsciously incompetent, it really just means that we're gambling. And that's typically how gambling addictions form, right? Somebody who doesn't understand the game, doesn't realize that, in a lot of cases for people who play games in the casino, the house is really there to win, right? Like, they have the edge on you. The house always wins in the casino, right? Unless you have some sort of edge to beat the casino, it's not happening. And same with the market, right? It's very easy to form a gambling addiction, right? A lot of people will chase, the highs that they get from winning. Actually, in fact, I've read about it. It's more that people are chasing the dopamine spike that they get from the thought or the anticipation of either winning or losing, whatever game they're playing, right? So that's how it can become pretty dangerous. So it's a little bit of a disclaimer, if you don't realize what you're doing, and maybe you're gambling in a game that you don't even understand the probabilities of, or who has an edge in that particular game, then again, I would go contact Alcoholics Anonymous or Gamblers Anonymous or whatever it is, and try to sort that out, right? Because that is not trading. That's not what professional traders do. You don't ever see professional traders acting out of impulse, being driven really by their emotions in the way that gambling addicts do. So a little word of warning there. So what about the next shift from conscious incompetence to conscious competence? So let's draw a little arrow here. Try to make it look a little nicer. So from here to here, this is where we finally make the decision, and this is probably the biggest step. This is kind of what weeds out people who want to become traders from those who kind of decide, okay, this is just not for them, right? The shift from conscious incompetence to conscious competence really starts when you decide that you want to find consistency in the market, and you'd like to find a strategy. And from a trade psychology perspective, you want to build the right set of mindset and skills that you need in order to build the confidence and the consistency to produce a consistent positive return in the market. So for most people, that means they're either joining phantom trading. I mean, we teach how to trade, right? We also teach some of the psychology stuff. That's what this video is essentially. Or maybe you decide, okay, I want to trade XYZ strategy. Maybe you want to trade fibs. It really doesn't matter. You could trade just supply and demand on its own without any of the more advanced concepts that we teach in phantom trading. Again, I'm a firm believer that any strategy can work. Some strategies are better than others, but what does it ultimately boil down to? It boils down to the trader and their ability to actually execute on that trade strategy in an effective manner with a good trade psychology. Because again, without the proper trade psychology, you're not going to find consistency in the market. It's very, very difficult. Either you have a natural propensity to, or maybe you have a a naturally good belief system that helps you or aids you in your your path to finding consistency. And this happens. We have Nora is a good example of this. I don't know how long he's been trading exactly, but I remember he joined Phantom, and within like 7 to 8 months, this guy found some really good consistency. And I'm not sure exactly why, but it's kind of like I don't want to call it a freak accident, but it's really impressive, right? And that's not typically the case for most people. That's very, very rare that happens. Like, Aaron is really an outlier when it comes to that, and he's obviously a team member now, and he's a very good trader. I'd argue he's a better trader than me. Like, there's no argument there, really. Like, and even in terms of trade psychology, this guy, he's cool as a cucumber, right? And so again, everybody's on their own different journey, right? I think I've mentioned that before in other videos and stuff, but for the most part, it's not going to take just 6, 7, 8 months for somebody to find consistency in trading, and for them to tune their psychology in a way that is conducive to building or creating like a positive return in the market, whatever market they're trading, right? It could take 12 months is what we typically expect. Sometimes it takes 2 years, sometimes it takes 5 years. That's just the truth about it, right? And for me, it took, I don't know, like 2-3 years for me to find true consistency. And even then, I have bad months here and there. It's normal, right? You can't expect to be positive every single month. But what's more important is we're focusing on consistency in the way that we execute our plan, and consistency in the way that we think, right? So conscious competence is really the learning phase of things, right? This is where you are, maybe back testing the strategy. You're learning how to do technical analysis, how to do your markups, how to execute trades within your strategy and within your trade plan. Maybe you're still building your trade plan out because you're early on, but this is definitely the stage that people spend the most time on, because it could take, in Aaron's case, it could take 7 to 8 months. In someone else's case, it could take, like I said, 5 years for you to actually get to the next stage, right? And obviously, while you're learning from a trade psychology perspective, this is where if you're trading even demo, right? People can get their emotions involved in demo, absolutely, right? There's no argument about that. Now, obviously, with a live account, or if you're trying to get funding, which is typically this is the stage that people are going to try to get their funding at, right? Sometimes it's premature, honestly. People are they've spent 6 months at Phantom and they're like, okay, it's time to get funding. Let's see if I can do it, right? And maybe they get it and then they lose it, right? Because they really didn't have that consistency, or maybe they got tilted in their trade psychology, right? So in this stage, when we're building up our trade psychology, it's a matter of building the actual domain experience. And by domain experience, I mean hands-on experience of trading the live market, exercising your patience muscle, right? Proving to yourself that you're not going to overtrade or force trades because you have fear of missing out, right? Because you see other people taking trades in the analysis channels or whatever, right? Or it's developing the skill to not hesitate on trades, right? There's all sorts of different pitfalls that we kind of encounter as traders when we're learning how to trade and when we're developing our trade psychology. It's just typical, right? Again, trading is a very counterintuitive thing. It's not an easy skill to build, and it's definitely not an easy skill to build a proper trading psychology, right? I like to always refer to Mark Douglas because I think, again, he is I don't know if I mentioned this before in the video. I don't think I have, but I've written about it in the article, and I really think his life's work kind of represents trade psychology in a very well packaged, objective way, right? He doesn't try to tell you, okay, you have to do this particular analysis or use this particular strategy. No, it's purely about trading psychology and the emotions that kind of get involved as you learn how to trade, right? So that's a big part of it. Whether it's the pitfalls that you hit, not understanding probability. This again is the stage where you'd be learning how to trade in a probabilistic mindset, right? Or probabilistically understanding how probabilities work, right? I kind of went over this. I think I go over it a little bit later in the article, but it's a very important thing to understand probabilities and understand that out of whatever sample size of trades, right, there is going to be a sort of different distribution or not that there's a different distribution, but there's going to be a distribution of wins and losses over that series of trades, whether it's 10 trades, 30 trades, whatever. And this is where we're going to kind of see, our strike rate and what our profit factor is, right? And how much we're making on average for those winning trades. And that's really, once you build the consistency from the psychological perspective to be able to execute a strategy in a consistent manner and, pull positive R, right? A positive risk to reward on the trades that you're taking over that long series of trades. And you're not getting tripped up over, small losing streaks, even big losing streaks, right? As well as winning streaks, right? Which can create overconfidence on the flip side. When you're not getting tripped up over that, that's really when we start moving into the next stage, which is unconscious competence. So let's move on to that now. What is unconscious competence? That's kind of the shift to mastery, right? And again, the shift from these two stages of trading psychology or trading in general, again, it can take years, right? And I truly believe that, this is kind of a never-ending thing, right? So you can always get better. I mean, I think we can all acknowledge that there's always room for improvement for things, right? But sometimes you can slip back, right? And go forward and slip back and go forward, right? And slip back, right? The whole idea of, two steps forward, 1 step back, right? So kind of like this, right? 1, 2, back, right? Anyways, you get the idea. It's a little weird, that illustration. They look like waves, but hopefully that kind of explains what I'm trying to explain. Right? And again, to become unconsciously competent, it means that, to become unconsciously competent, it's almost like having, your trade execution as second nature. It means your emotions are not impeding your ability to execute on valid trades within your plan. It's really that simple. And again, is this a hard skill to build? I would say it is. It takes a lot of time, right? It's very hard to unlearn, bad habits. That's why the saying goes, old habits die hard. It's very difficult to unlearn, certain preconceived beliefs that we kind of came into trading with, probably. I know that was the case for me, and that's probably why it took me so long. And, I think to become unconsciously competent at trade psychology and just trading in general, it really means that you're resolving a lot of, these emotions that may have either tripped up your ability to trade consistently in the past, or you've effectively changed your belief system again in a way that makes it conducive for you to produce a positive return in the market. So that's that section. Let's move on to the next part. All right, next let's discuss trade psychology for new traders. So if you're a new trader, you're probably still in the conscious incompetent stage, or you're just starting the third stage, which is conscious competence. You're just starting to learn. So if you joined Phantom and maybe you've been with us for a month or maybe even 3 or 4 months, I would say you're still pretty early in the journey. And from a trade psychology perspective, you probably don't have much in the realm of trade psychology skills. A lot of the time, what we've noticed and what I've noticed personally is that my trade skills, or my ability to trade, my technical analysis skills, execution skills, all of that, they progressed actually faster than my trade psychology skills. Why? Because I neglected it. And this is what typically a lot of people do. They neglect their trading psychology straight off the bat. They think, okay, to learn how to trade effectively, I just need to learn the perfect strategy and execute it perfectly. But in order to do that, again, you need trade psychology skills to be able to handle the different types of emotional stress that you might go through as a trader. Now, again, this is not the case for every trader. There's rare circumstances where you'll come into this and for whatever reason you have, naturally a good psychology that kind of works with trading. But that's not typically the case, right? It's very, very rare that happens. So let's think about it. Why would you maybe have a good trade psychology coming to this? Maybe you're a professional gambler. If you're a professional poker player, you're probably going to come into this with better trade psychology skills than most people. Those skills will transfer over. Same for if you've been trading stocks or cryptos for a couple of years, and now you're trying to get into the Forex market. Same thing, right? If you've found consistency or profitability in another market and you're just trying to learn another one, then I would expect you probably have decently good trade psychology skills, right? Now, the difficult thing about trading psychology is that it's going to be different for each individual trader. We all have different challenges, pitfalls, and different personalities, different paths that we're going to go through in order to, deal with, and I don't even like using the word deal with, it's really about resolving the emotions at the end of the day, right? Once we kind of build up the skills to, approach trading from a certain mindset, that's really where the big shift in our trade psychology will happen, right? So what does this have to do with new traders? If you were a new trader, I typically like to tell people not to stress out, because it's very likely that you're still figuring out your trading plan, right? It's not like, we just come into trading with a trade plan right away, or that we can take someone else's trading plan and just start executing it the same way that they do. It's just not the way things work. And trust me, I've tried it. It does not work that way. You have to learn to adapt a trading plan to fit your personality. That's typically how it goes most of the time, right? Now, the other thing, if you're new to trading, it's really important that you start with building patience. What I see a lot of people do, and it's not just me, it's the rest of the team, we've noticed that a lot of people will come into trading, doesn't matter what market, and they'll think that, brute forcing the market, entering 10 positions in one day is going to make them, a lot of money. They think there's a direct correlation between the number of trades that they take, their trade frequency, and the amount of profit that they're going to make for the day. But unfortunately, that's not how trading works. Typically, and again, this is not always the case, but typically, less is more in trading. That means taking less trades, being patient, and really only taking high probability trade setups, right? So a very important thing to understand when we're first getting into trading, especially when we want to develop our trade psychology. Next, let's talk about why trading is harder than any other profession. It's pretty simple. The problem with trading is, unfortunately, you can lose money just as easily as you can make money, right? It's not like having a job, or even running certain types of businesses where you're not necessarily going to lose a lot of money, right? Say you're doing consulting or something, and whatever, you get a client, right? And you're able to provide a service or a product to that client, and they pay you for it, right? Where are you really losing money in that? Except for maybe the fact that maybe you don't budget your time properly, or you undercharge for whatever the service or product is, and it costs you more to deliver that service or product than what you're charging for it. It's not like trading. It's a lot easier to lose money in trading than it is in traditional business, if you ask me. I'm not saying it's not possible either. Of course, there's possibility for anything, but it's as easy as putting a trade on and taking a loss on it, right? So that's the difficult thing about trading. And again, it takes years and years sometimes for people to get profitable. It's just like learning any other, extremely challenging profession, right? People go to university for 4 years or longer if they're trying to do their master's, or do a graduate or undergraduate degree, things like that, right? It takes time to learn skills, right? And obviously with trading, you're learning it on your own, right? So you have to be able to actually have the discipline to kind of keep yourself accountable for learning and for practicing your skills and actually studying, and aside from that, having the discipline to actually stick to your plan within the live market. There's a bunch of stuff that you need to do, right? So that's what makes it more difficult than other trading professions, in my opinion. And I think objectively, we can say that, right? There's not a ton of people that end up becoming successful at trading. It's just a fact of life, and that can be said about pretty much anything, right? Not everybody that decides they want to be a painter becomes a famous painter, just as an example, right? Same with athletes, right? Not everybody who plays basketball is going to make it to the NBA. It's just life. That's how things are, right? Now, the other thing is that makes trading difficult is you can't win every single trade. This is a really important thing that a lot of traders, I feel like, come into trading and they they hold this belief that they can win every single trade. It's just not true. It's literally statistically impossible for you to, I don't want to say impossible, but very, very highly improbable that you're going to win every single trade in your trading career. It's just not going to happen. We don't know what causes price to move from an objective standpoint. We really don't, right? So again, anything can happen in the market, meaning that any particular trade, no matter how high probability it is, right, there's a chance of it failing, right? And that leads me to my next point. Losing can hurt, right? Different people, they process losing in different ways, right? Sometimes you'll experience, things like anger, sadness, or you're going to approach it as, you're going to fight the market. That really kind of is the same thing as anger, but maybe you're going to decide, okay, I'm going to revenge trade because I've taken a bunch of losses on the day and I want to recover it, right? This is just one of the other pitfalls of trading, right? And again, this boils down to trading psychology, right? Learning how to lose properly in trading is a very, very important skill. If you don't know how to take a loss without overreacting to it, you're going to blow your account. It's just a fact, right? So, next part. Why doesn't consistency happen overnight? Again, as I mentioned before, it takes a long time to build the skills, the necessary skills that you need to find real long-term profitability. And even as you're building up your skills, you may even hit certain months or quarters where you think you're consistently profitable, and then maybe you go and you start tweaking your trade plan around out of boredom, right? Stuff like that can happen. I've done that before in the past, and you lose your consistency, right? Only to realize, okay, I should go back to what I was doing because I was more consistent with it. Maybe you don't remember what you were doing, right? So again, there's just so many reasons you can hurt your consistency as a trader, even if you have, intermittent consistency. And again, that's why it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you can just magically become consistent within a day or, after you've watched all the phantom trading course, right? You have to actually sit down and experience all of it in the live market, right? Otherwise, you can't expect consistency. It's not going to happen overnight, I promise you. Now, next part. Let's talk about why consistently losing is better than inconsistently winning. This kind of boils down to, the whole importance of identifying valid and invalid trades within your trading plan. So it should be pretty clear cut, especially if you're a new trader. You should really have objective rules based on, if you're trading the phantom trading strategy, which is supply and demand, your trading plan should dictate whether or not you're going to get into a trade based on things like the higher time frame trend, supply and demand, liquidity, and then obviously, if it fits your lower time frame entry model or whatever time frame you're entering off of. It could be 15-minute, 5-minute. You could enter off the 1 hour or 4 hour if you're a swing trader, right? But you have to be able to identify valid setups and differentiate them from invalid setups. And the thing is, and I'll show on the screen here, the thing is with winning trades and losing trades is, as you can see from the little chart that I've put up here, there are going to be valid setups that result in winning trades and losing trades, which are fine, and you should take those, right? You should always take the trades in the left column. But at all costs, we should be avoiding taking invalid setups because this is really the bane of consistency. If we're going to be inconsistent in the way that we approach the market, we cannot expect consistency in the market, right? And this is really a trade psychology thing at the end of the day. I've just put up, kind of like a approximate idea of like a trade setups on here. They're not necessarily, like, some of them might be valid or invalid based on whatever your trading plan says, right? It really depends on how you trade. I'm not going to assume that everybody who's watching these videos trades the way that phantom trades. Maybe you trade break and retest strategy, right? In which case some of the trades on the right might be valid, right? So I'm just using it as an example, but again, we want to avoid taking invalid setups in our trade plan. If that means that we're not going to trade against the 4 hour and 15-minute trend, then don't trade against them. Only trade pro trend or with trend, right? So the reason I bring this up is because there's a big danger in taking invalid setups, especially if we win, right? Obviously, when we lose, we get humbled, and we realize we get disciplined in a way by the market for taking trades that don't fit our plan, right? But if we win on a trade that is invalid, that's really dangerous because we're being rewarded, usually monetarily, especially if we're trading a live account or a funded account or whatever. We're being rewarded for a trade that doesn't even fit our plan. And if you can't see how dangerous that is, then I don't know what to tell you. It's very dangerous. On the other hand, valid setups, even if you take a loss, whatever, it's fine, right? As long as you're sticking to your plan, I'd say keep taking them. And eventually, you're going to build some consistency with this, right? Taking valid setups over and over. You have to be consistent in the way that you approach the market. So, very important. All right, so in closing, this is just a really short beginner's guide on trading psychology. We'll probably delve into a lot of the topics that we covered in this video in more detail in the future. But thank you for watching, and let us know if you have any questions about trade psychology.